Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are doing the Steam fall list cleanup in the spirit of spring cleaning, which it's around springtime as of this recording. I'm going through every game that meets either one of two criteria, meaning that they have now been given either enough time in the form of 6 months, as this game came out before January 1st, 2019, which is my cutoff date. So games have either been given 6 months to accrue at least 20 reviews, which we can see here the last letter has not, or for games that are just already have accrued 20 reviews, and thus I can go ahead and look at them and decide if the game deserves to go to the wish list, which means I actually want to buy it and review it on my channel, or if it just is a game that's not really that relevant or important to play, so it leaves the follow list. Today we're doing games that start with the letter L, and I think that oddly the wish list will put games that start with THE under T in its alphabetical order, and yet the follow list will actually do the Dewey Decimal System thing, which I don't even think they use the Dewey Decimal System anymore. And that shows how old I am, or at least since last time I was in the library. But to my surprise, the first game starting with the letter L is the last letter. Now, this is a VR game, so I'm almost certainly never going to buy a VR headset. So even if this was a game that somehow passed my consideration, it would really just stay in the follow list. That being said, we probably don't have the metrics here to call this a relevant game. When it has one user review, and I could try here to reload this. Right now I have so many tabs open, it's using RAM, almost all my RAM. It swings between 60% of the 16 gigabytes to as high as 88% used up. It's a lot, and it's caused some of these screenshots not to load. In part, that's the reason. The other part is just by having so many tabs open up at the same time, the images just don't load. This is a game that's asking a premium even for a VR game. I would also point out that this game kind of looks like it's a Jumanji ripoff, because it is focusing on this idea, if we watch the video here, that you're in this apartment, you're doing a VR narrative puzzle, you find a board that looks very much like a Jumanji board, and I guess this is a ripoff of the original Jumanji movie, not the kind of reboot. So you find this board, and then at some point it sends you into a whole nother world. There's actual characters here, which makes it feel like it's a little bit better quality than a standard low effort visual narrative puzzle game. Like, I could see easily not having any characters here, and I guess the idea with the board and teleporting yourself is that you're going to be standing in one place shooting things with a slingshot, which is how so many games work. Quite frankly, you in VR, you just are standing at one place and shooting at things. This does have a little bit of a Myst vibe. Particularly Myst 3 has one specific world that you go to that has a lot of plants that you manipulate and move, and this video looks very similar to that. That being said, even though you have this character, that doesn't really mean anything. It's easy enough to buy a pre-made 3D model asset, and you are definitely asking a high price at $25 for this game. Let's see, it seems like it was a recent update on April 11th. We could go look at the review. The one English review played for 1 hour and a half. They actually purchased it on Steam, so it's a verified purchase review. It says the game keeps freezing up. My equipment and my computer are working fine. It's the game. It makes so you can't use my hands. I'd like my money back, which It's odd that this is an April 30th review because he's eligible for a full refund, quite frankly, because you can, if you play the game on Steam for less than 2 hours, that's just an automated refund process, and you'll only get in trouble if you did it for a lot of games. So let's go ahead and reload this page and see how this works. Now, I won't be doing that for every game because, quite frankly, it's not worth the time. And most of the time, it will only be the thumbnails that don't load, not the screenshots themselves. Yeah. So this has been given 6 months. It has failed to be relevant. It doesn't have even 20 people that have bothered to review the game. It probably has had less than 100 reviews. 100 purchases in total, if I was to guess, or maybe a few thousand even. It's still not really relevant, even if it was 10,000 sales. It says it has full audio English, but it also has full audio Japanese and Chinese, which is weird, which makes me think that there's actually very little spoken in any language, and you're just getting sound effects or gibberish being said. I feel a lot of game developers abuse this and say that it has full audio when it doesn't. Frankly, this wouldn't surprise me if this was a Chinese game as much as a Japanese game. But when you get into VR, it's not even an issue of who made it. It's an issue of people trying to sell something for too much of a price. It says the game is entirely dubbed in English, Japanese, and Chinese, and let's see, there are 2 negative reviews if we took the other one out. We have one in German that's also negative, and now it's activated by a key, so that review would not be a verified purchase and wouldn't be considered up here. Doesn't that also inherently mean that this is 100% negative? Yes, it is. The 2 people that have reviewed it both hated it. It's kind of a shame, but this is how things are going to go a lot of times. Let's move on to the other game, and we'll cover some of the other potential red flags we'll run into. So next game we're looking at is called Last Fight. It does meet the relevancy arbitrary metric of having 20 verified purchases that are positive in some way. The system as to whether it says positive, mostly positive, very positively, outstandingly positive, those key phrases have more to do with the number of reviews than the actual percentage of positivity of the reviews. So it's weird and kind of randomized, so you really can't use it as a metric. But if it's positive for anything, you know it's probably over 75% positive. I think that's about their metric. This is a game that doesn't use VR, which is good because I don't want to just be looking at VR games. It's a 2 versus 2 fighting game, which seems weird. And it's single player with local multiplayer and local co-op. I'm not sure how you play 2 versus 2 or in single player. Like, every game I cover would be in single player, and so I think there's very little gameplay actually in here that I could play. Looking at the graphics, the other way in which a game might make it to the wish list is even if it didn't have enough relevancy and it wasn't just a matter of mob rule, people saying in general that the game is good, there might be something visually that interests me, and there is a little bit here that visually interests me, in the fact that kind of looks like one of the Punch-Out characters, so that catches my attention. And then we have all these other monster people that you're fighting in this ring with nothing stopping you from getting out of the ring, no ropes. Yeah, he totally looks like a Punch-Out character, particularly the Wii Punch-Out game. but then all the other characters don't even look human, so that's not very relatable. And this looks like this is just a fighting game. It came out May 19th, 2016, so it almost certainly has no fan base and no follow base. So if there was online multiplayer, which there isn't, there would be nobody to play anyways. But they didn't even bother to go that far. This really feels like you're a Thanos clone and a Poison Ivy clone, and are all of these characters cheap ripoffs of like Marvel or DC characters? Maybe. The Thing? Maybe. I don't know why you need to be that unique with your character designs. This is kind of like a Smash Brothers side style game, where Smash Brothers is 4 versus 4 and has a lot of characters. There's a decent number of games on Steam that have something like that, although this would be actually playing 2v2, which would just be annoying, quite frankly. When I'm looking at reviews, I'm only going to really look at the negative ones. There's some other red flags we might look at in particular. If it is a game that supports English and Chinese only, it might be a low effort Chinese game. If it's a game that supports English and Russian only, it might be a low effort Russian troll game. Or we may just run into some very low effort games in general, although most of those tend not to be on the follow list, so I've said this every recording and actually not run into any of them. And it feels more like I'm just being cruel in that description, but when looking at general games that come out, and the reason I have a follow list in the first place is because every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I stream Hearthstone, talk about video game news, and look at every single game that's come out on Steam, and if it looks good enough it goes to the follow list. So that the follow list is always growing, and every 6 months or so I'll have to do a cleanup series, and it might get easier, certainly, because my standards are also growing. So the negative reviews from March 25th is not the Power Stone Fun Fest that it might seem, clunky and pretty boring, sadly. Power Stone might be a fighting game. Like, I know there's a Marvel vs. Capcom game where you can get the Infinity Gems and they increase your attack or give you a special attack. But that might not be what Power Stone is. Power Stone might be its own fighting game. I give this a go. It's not as polished. It's not as fun as Power Stone. Seems like Power Stone is well known. Too. And see, that's part of the problem why this is on the follow list as I just scroll down here is I don't know fighting games. I'm trying to think of like what is a good list of 10 fighting games to get into it. Do I need to play the most popular ones, or do I need to play the easiest ones to learn the systems? Smash Brothers certainly I have seen and heard of. So we should do a little research here and see if there is on Steam a game called Power Stone, or if it is a arcade game or an old game. To me it seems like it's probably an old game because I'm not seeing anything on Steam like that. So you're in a weird position here. It's 78% positive. I could choose to either go by mob rule and say, well, most people liked it, or I could trust my instinct here and say, well, most people will like it because they have friends that also play fighting games, and when you're playing with your friends, that makes a lot of sense. I think for my use, as somebody who would probably only be able to do a tutorial mode, this is not a good game to be on the wish list. Also, it does have 20 reviews, but it is also from 2016. So if it was supposed to be 20 reviews in less than 6 months, this game was given way more than 6 months. It was given 3 years, quite frankly, if I'm doing the math right. So it should be up to at least 60 reviews by that metric, if I'm just going to multiply the arbitrary number, or actually maybe 120. My math is terrible. There's a lot of justification here to not put that on the follow list. So we'll move on to the next game. Next game we have is called Leaf. It's an exploration-driven action-adventure game or on your quest to stabilize 2 abandoned worlds. I don't want to read the descriptions too much. This came out April 11th, 2019. Why am I considering this? This one has not been given 6 months, and it does not have enough reviews. I must have accidentally left this or opened this tab. Yeah, this is a game that is too early. It deserves 6 months. That being said, since this came out April 11th, 2019 and has 3 reviews, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if nobody got around to it, nobody played it. My system very much may be falling apart as time goes on, as there are just more and more games that flood Steam, particularly since Steam Direct became a thing. And so I may have to reevaluate things eventually, but it's hard to make that reevaluation because people's time certainly hasn't expanded. Just the number of options have expanded about what you can do with your time. So you have to consider that too. There may just be a point we reach where a significant number of games come out on Steam and they are of a decent quality, or we get to a point where all games are good and they have to be great before anybody will take notice of them and they'll be successful products. That would be nice. That is the cream rising to the crop scenario compared to a everybody bringing each other down in the mud scenario, which often feels like might be the case on Steam with so many terrible asset flip and low effort games. Let's see. Next we have a game here called Let It Rain. It seems like this is a motorcycle racing / on rails shooter game. It has a little bit more polish, just a tiny bit more polish than what I would call a low effort asset flip game is. It's might be procedurally generated hallways and such. Seems like you're shooting some pretty generic enemies, and then if you drive by a bikini clad or underwear clad lady, she'll kiss your face, and I guess that probably improves your health. This is an interesting concept. It came out December 12th, 2018. It certainly has my attention for its unique idea, although I might argue a question about why not just an ability to run over the enemies with the motorcycle. And it seems like the motorcycle gets power-ups at some point and you're able to shoot from the front of the motorcycle, and in this sequence it seems like you're not doing any shooting, you're just doing standard racing. Now control in any racing game is going to be an issue. I don't recognize this developer, I don't recognize this publisher. This is $11.99. It was last updated in April 10th, so it's not been too abandoned. Well, I wouldn't say it really has been abandoned at all. Let's see what the reviews say. We have 10 negative reviews, and my guess is that the negative reviews are going to be the controlling sucks, it's super repetitive, there's only a few levels, the enemy and art design is not polished enough, there's not enough to do. Things like that would be my guess as far as the problems with it. This is probably an example, as these are trying to load up, of me falling in love with a concept and the game developer falling in love with a concept, but not really having the budget to do this. And often a lot of these games would be great little mini games and transition games in a standard first-person shooter. You could put this, frankly, in any first-person shooter scenario, where you just have to drive around and shoot enemies on a motorcycle. Let's see. So first one says, I was expecting some fun out of this, not much, but a game without a goal or purpose is really useless. You don't take damage, so you don't struggle for your life or anything. No achievements, no reward, nothing. There are two modes, one which you shoot monsters and collect bikini girls. They give you kiss stamps on the screen. The other mode is just trying to run the fastest possible with lots of bikini girls dancing on your way. That's it. In 20 minutes I played the content of the game that it had to offer. 3 maps. Really a really lame customer shop to personalize your motorcycle. Bah, too little. So we've got a lot of games here, negative reviews. Don't buy this game. This was activated by a Steam key. And that's one of the ways that they found to manipulate reviews, is give out the game or sell the game on third-party storefronts, and then it's not a verified purchase because Steam can't really tell if somebody bought the key or if it was given to them for free. And so it says 7 user reviews, but there was more than 7. There was 10 negative reviews here, all early access, thus considered less important, and all activated by Steam key. Let's see. Seems like there's 5 levels now, but that seems about all that's here. This is a great example of something looking like one thing and being another. Like, this is a good thumbnail. Every single one of these screenshots, not particularly great, but good enough. They're not as terrible as many of the games I've seen. And if it weren't for those reviews, I would totally have put this game on my wish list and spent $11.99. Probably not. I probably would have waited till it was on sale and at least half off. But even if I spent $5 on this, it's not a $5 game. It's not a game worth playing at all. So it's leaving the follow list. Next we have the game Left Alive, which is rated very negatively at 18% positive of 353 user reviews. This came out March 5th, 2019 from Square Enix. So Square Enix has been having a lot of trouble. They've been losing people in their production and management. It seems like Square Enix, without succeeding at releasing the Final Fantasy VII remake that they're working on, if they can't get that out and get it to sell pretty well, I can't imagine that Square Enix is going to be well funded to make any other games or experimental games like this. And it's a little weird. There have been long rumors that are practically confirmed that Square Enix micromanages from the management side. The CEOs, the top board micromanages and doesn't let the artists actually create a good product. And that's the accusation, I believe, for Deus Ex Mankind Divided, is that it had a multiplayer element just forced in it when nobody wanted that. And that, I believe, was also the complaints of the Hitman reboot. that there was just a lot of micromanagement and poor leadership. Since then, this game came out, and it came out with very little fanfare, and I did see some mainstream video game critics play this game, and they would played it for about 5 minutes, and then they said, don't buy this game because it is just incredibly repetitive. And I know none of the screenshots are loading right now. You have to kind of go in a circle to decide for it to decide to load the images. The idea of a stealth survival mech game in kind of a urban environment's not a terrible thought, but it's obviously not well received and not well done. It uses de novo anti-tamper, which I have a plug-in for Chrome that warns me of things like that and changes how Steam looks quite a bit. They want $59.99. I have another plugin which would tell me the historic low price for this game, and I imagine the historic low price has not gone below $59. Has a third-party EULA, end-user license agreement for no reason. Full English support, but not full Japanese, even though this definitely feels like it would be better marketed to a Japanese audience with Japanese characters, considering it's mechs. We don't even really have to look at the negative reviews alone. We can just pick the first few. This is pure garbage, but it's garbage on purpose since most of its problems can be rectified quite easily. It's like they did not want this to be good for some reason. So, de novo performance, you have to quit to the main menu to load a save game. Limited save slots. Your upgrades are advertisements. Hey, it's the crowbar from Half-Life. Are you excited? Wow, you got a backpack. It's a World of Tanks backpack. Yeah, and cross-promoting Half-Life makes some sense. Cross-promoting World of Tanks, not so much. Huge World of Tanks posters everywhere on the floors of hospitals. Most missions are stealth escort missions, and you have no control over the NPC. You can kill enemies, but all you do is waste ammo. You cannot get their weapons or their ammo. You can only hope they drop the specific handgun ammo you use by luck. They will deny it, but it looks like the Fox engine to me, although it must have been a Chinese bootleg version. I have no idea what the Fox engine is, but probably not that good. Just plain bad. Avoid. Got my refund. How about you? Unoptimized. Yeah, just a lack of care and concern from Square Enix. Was there a personal slight here? Did the producer of Left Alive not show enough respect to a manager, and thus they tanked a game? Seems really ridiculous. And in one perspective, they must have been intending to do this for a long time. And this isn't, I think, a Hollywood thing where they're trying to lose money to write off the profits from other games. It's not like Square Enix has made massive amounts of profit and need a tax haven. Left Alive, from my memory, was not shown at E3 last year, and then it was released before E3 happened this year. So there was really no fanfare for it. So of course this game is going to leave the follow list. The only reason it was on the follow list in the first place is because I probably saw this game the day it came out on March 5th and it didn't have any reviews. This is a real disappointment though, because there's no reason for this. There really is no reason for Square Enix, the publisher that also was publishing Life is Strange, which is a weird one, and Octopath Traveler, which was hugely successful, and plenty of other games. They have 119 games behind their name. There's no reason for them to be pushing out something like Left Alive. There's no reason for them to be putting out The Quiet Man, which was pretty bad. I didn't enjoy Life is Strange 1, so I didn't want to play Life is Strange 2. There's no reason for even Shadow of the Tomb Raider to be as bad as it was. It's mostly positive, but it's given, you can see here, like PC Gamer gave it an 84 and IGN gave it a 9.0. Quite frankly, for the third game in the series, it could have probably been another whole point, or another whole 10 points higher. I probably wouldn't make it to a perfect 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 9.6 for IGN. I'm not fully aware of their thing. The only game that was massively successful is the JRPG Dragon Quest series, which sells itself. So it becomes questionable as to why Square Enix seems to even care about Western games when they treat them so poorly. Forgotten End is kind of another game that I do want to cover, but it wasn't advertised well enough for what it was. Final Fantasy 15 had major problems. Now, it's questionable, was that the producer of Final Fantasy 15 wasting all of the budget and making a bad game, or was that a micromanagement from people above him? It's hard to know, but we do know that the producer of Final Fantasy 15 has left Square Enix since then. They're making a collection, I believe, for Secret of Mana games, but when this was first released, it had problems, and it's still mixed. When this was released, I think it also had problems, and these are just remakes of old games. So unless you would believe that the budget for The Quiet Man and the budget for Left Alive were eaten up by Final Fantasy 15, it's just a weird situation where you kind of have to blame the publisher. And the publishers are supposed to be, the whole deal of having a publisher is you're supposed to get money for selling a percentage, a share, a stock of the proceeds of that game. And because the publisher is giving money to the developer to help them finish and develop that game, they want the game to be good so it sells, so you can recoup the cost you've invested. It seems to me what Square Enix does sometimes is they buy the rights to publish a game and then don't support it either financially or through other services they might offer, such as management or just third-party support teams that would help them develop and bug fix. So if I was making a video game, I wouldn't do business with Square Enix. I really wouldn't. It sounds like it's a nightmare. But I'm getting off on too much of a tangent, I think. Left Alive is not making it to the follow list. Let's move on. Next we have a game called Liberty Prime, which seems to be a game where you're running around and hacking and slashing things. Not seeing anything too special here. It looks like this is just a fast-paced Diablo-esque clone, and when I look at the reviews, the 37 verified purchases tell me it's only 45% positive. This came out September 21st, 2018. I probably liked the way this looked, or was just looking for a generic Diablo clone. Although, in all honesty, if I'm going to play Diablo, I should either play Diablo 1, 2, or 3, or Torchlight, or Torchlight 2, which are the spiritual successors of Diablo. There might be a few other games that are very well known that would fall into that category, but there really is not a good reason to play something that's lesser known. Maybe the dragons being shown here caught my attention. it's kind of hard to remember or know why I even decided to put some of these on here. This also is a game that fails the test as far as early access. This has been out since September 21st, 2018. It's been given way more than 6 months to be in early access, and it's selling for $9.99. So this almost certainly is not a game that would be finished, because it feels like it's an abandoned early access game. I think there is a very good argument to make to Steam that they should force people who have been in early access for very long times to either remove their game from sale from their store or put out a finalized version. And then when they put out a finalized version, they that finalized version should be looked at by somebody on Steam at Valve to see that it actually is a finished product, and that would be too expensive, certainly. But there is a growing list of early access games that have just stayed in early access for months, years. Liberty Prime not making it to the follow list. Next game for consideration is Life is Strange 2. I've been considering this game quite a bit because it's coming out episodically, and it kind of continues the story of the free demo, but doesn't really so much continue the story, as far as I've heard so far, of what happens in... That's an interesting scene to show with them skinny dipping. Because I was going to mention this, the main boy character is 16 years old in the story, and he has a full-on sex scene, and seems like nobody complained about that. So it seems like there's some double standards in the art that's being displayed sometimes. So it seems like this video has been updated, because this doesn't feel like what was happening in the first chapter. This game has been episodically released, and it every time a new episode comes out, I consider it, and as someone who really didn't enjoy the way the first game played for the most part, because it jumped around in gameplay mechanics, I don't see a reason that I'd want to continue this. I haven't done Life is Strange Before the Storm. I haven't done the demo, which is called like the Secret Adventures of Captain Osimo or something like that. It's been a long time in which these elements have come out. The story itself, I don't have to get too into it, but one of the two brothers, who happen to be Mexican, has telekinetic powers, which is different than the time freezing powers in Life is Strange 1 that character had, and something happens to make it look like they murdered a police officer, and they're on the run and being chased by people. So yeah, I will applaud and say and point out in all fairness that over its lifetime it is 86% positive. So people who know the game series and want to play the game series are enjoying it. I'm just not. And I think it is only fair to say that there's definitely a slightly strange leftist, I don't want to say leftist agenda, that is the wrong phrase, social justice warrior agenda. I mean, it's very clearly designed to have the two boys who are on the run be Mexican. It's very clearly designed to show elements of racism in many of the actions and scenes. But then it's also weird because Don't Nod Entertainment is like a couple of Canadian guys, a couple of Canadian hipsters, white guys. So it felt weird when they were when they were covering a game about a teenage girl that could freeze time. That felt off, and it was very Twin Peaksy, influenced by Twin Peaks. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more Twin Peaks elements. Here, it seems like not much would be too different as far as how the story went. So yeah, I didn't feel like the first game was that good, and frankly, when I hear people say that I'm not hearing anybody say that the second season is that good either. It's just kind of mediocre. Here we have an off-topic review. Let's see. And so you have to be logged in to review that. Date range. So, graph. So, there's a whole period here that is being flagged as off-topic reviews, this is something that Steam has has implemented. Let's see. So when something gets flagged as off-topic reviews by Valve, this is really dumb because everybody's review gets rejected, and most of the things that Valve seems to think are off-topic reviews are probably, if you are aware of them, going to affect your enjoyment of the game. So let's see here. What is the problem? Seems like the game crashes. It seems like the game is selling episodically. I thought the game was always selling episodically. Is this a joke? Am I a joke to you? Let's see. Game is a standard archetypal kid. What is the off-topic review here? What are people upset about? Please sell the episodes separately and I will change my review. So it seems like the problem people are having is that they have to buy all the episodes together, and yet you're selling the game as it's an episodic problem. Seems like that is very on topic. The way you have to invest in a game being deceptive seems very on topic, and that's exactly my problem with these games being reviewed. At some point, they apparently fixed this and remedied it so that you can buy episode 2 and episode 3, but at some point, you must have been only able to buy the entirety of the game. And I don't think episode 3 is even the final part. If it is, then I would say they probably have abandoned completing the story, or it's just a much shorter story. So this is a weirder situation, definitely, because it is a game that is mostly reviewed positively. It's just, for me, I tried the first one, and I need to raise my standards. If I play the first game in a series and I find it mediocre, then that I really don't feel the need to then struggle through it to play the others. Is this rating system here? Take a look at this rating, by the way. Mature 17 plus. There's nothing wrong that I have wrong with that, but they just ticked all the boxes. Like blood, partial nudity, violence, sexual content, use of drugs and alcohol, strong language, use of tobacco. I don't think I've ever seen a game that has checked so many boxes as far as why something is rated M. And frankly, depending on the extremeness on this, it might really be a game that should be sold as adult only with all that content. I think the only other things you could probably add would be like Nazi imagery or something, and I don't even know if that's really a category. And from the other perspective, I kind of wanted this game to sound a lot more interesting and to be received a lot better, because an interesting tale of two brothers off on an adventure is not something that sounds like a bad idea at all. It's just kind of how it was implemented. It's an example, I think, again, of Square Enix not funding a game properly and not supporting a game properly, and the wrong people writing the wrong story. It seems like Don't Nod really is a company that loves to tell stories that they have no experience on. Let's see if we can just bring up Don't Nod Entertainment and go through all their games. They also released Vampire, which was mostly liked but a little buggy. Life is Strange Episode 1, overwhelmingly positive. And upcoming releases are Episode 4 and Episode 5 of Life is Strange 2. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of run out of funding at that point. But yeah, there's some weirdness in the stories they choose to tell. I know it would be a pretty boring game if they just told stories of a couple of hipsters out of Canada, but yeah, they should do something different. And I don't fully hold to the concept that artists can't be creative and write something that they're not familiar with. It's just Life is Strange 1 didn't really succeed well on this. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that in that sex scene with the 16-year-old, you can choose either a girl or a boy as your romantic partner. So I assume that probably passes on through the rest of the game, but probably plays no real role. Moving on, let's see. Next game we have is a much more simplistic looking puzzle game called Light Bar, and that was a long conversation. And I guess that is a little bit of what a bigger game gets, is it gets more consideration, it gets more conversation, even if it is particularly not a great game. Whereas something like Light Bar might not be given 5 minutes of conversation. Most big video game review sites would probably never have found this game or bothered to look at this game. And certainly the same is true for people who bought the game. This has four verified user reviews. It came out June 28th, 2018. That being said, I think that there's actually a game here. This looks like a light puzzle game that probably is pretty simplistic. It looks like all the dialogue might be through text gameplay. But it doesn't look terrible. It probably doesn't have a ton of puzzles either, so I would want to look and see what the average playtime here is compared to the price. And in a game like this, I might run into a sequence where there's a bunch of text here, and I would just say pause now if you want to read it and not read it myself. This is $4.99, and I almost certainly wouldn't buy this game at that price. And quite frankly, this could be a mobile game. But let's see what we can get out of this. It's not telling me how long it is. It's not telling me how many puzzles it is. It's English only. It has 11 achievements, so it might only have 11 elements. Or 11 puzzle or doors. We have one that played it for a third of an hour. We have one that played it for 3.2 hours. Really fun puzzle game and mysterious surprise in abundance. I really enjoyed playing it. And if you like puzzles and mysteries by it, you won't be disappointed. This is why I usually don't read puzzle reviews, because they're always pretty useless. See, the one negative review is in Japanese. The 4 positive reviews are also sometimes in Japanese or an Asian language. Hmm. So, yeah, it's a risky buy, certainly. We've got nothing here that tells me that it's that long. It seems like it's a 30-minute game. And so if we're going to assume that it is a 30-minute game, which makes sense, unfortunately, I think I can't, at that price tag, give it the justification to move to the wish list. This is just so risky to spend $5 and potentially play half an hour long. And I kind of feel like that might very well be what all of this is that there's just a collection of light puzzles that are relatively simple. This is another example of a game that, if this was a mini game inside a standard AAA first-person shooter, it would work really nice. But since it's not, it's living and dying by the quantity more than even the quality of this game. And this certainly isn't ray tracing, although it might be similar concept. So, it certainly doesn't look that amazingly good. The only thing I could think is maybe if this developer or publisher had made something else, but he hasn't, so you're left with this game that came out June 28th, 2018, and the price tag is just too risky. It's too high. He's raised the price above what he could sell that, whereas if this was a $2.99 game, something that often went on sale to $1.99 or even 99 cents, I'd consider it. But going for the full $5 is asking too much while failing to really advertise itself very well. If it had said there's 50 levels or 50 puzzles, this game takes 30 to 60 minutes to play, anything like that, I could certainly jump into the discussions and see if somebody has posted a conversation about that, but it seems like there's no review that even bothers to mention the length, which is a little suspicious. And so the game isn't relevant, but it does catch my eye, but it doesn't catch my eye for $5. So let's move on to the next game. Next game we have is Light Fairy Tale Episode 1, so this is an episodic JRPG with turn-based combat. Before we get to it, I will also mention if we run into any adult games, which we might, I have a blur function that I'll use to check to make sure all the screenshots are YouTube friendly. Most of the screenshots nowadays are, but there was a brief second there where some games were tagged nudity and sexual content, which is fine, but then the screenshots also had nudity and sexual content, which really wasn't fine. And it seems so weird that you really have to click through all of it to come back and see the screenshots. Now, what this probably is going to fail on immediately is there are so many JRPGs on my wish list. I'm not sure how many I need to really cover. I doubt I would ever cover an unknown one. This is from an unknown self-publisher, Nico Works. Nico being the Japanese word for cat. So, this doesn't look terrible. Like, if you made a mobile game that looked like this, it would probably sell just fine. But then you're selling a JRPG as an episodic product, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, even when Final Fantasy does things like that, it's not well received. You really think your unheard of unknown game? Now, these anime intros may certainly catch your attention and trick you into thinking that there's more of a game here, but you pretty quickly learn not to fall for that. This game is $9.99 for the episode 1. It's still being worked on. It's full audio in Japanese, which is slightly useful. That being said, I just don't see how this works. Let's see, this game has a decent framework to be something interesting, but a lot of the flaws that prevent me from recommending the game. Cinematic trailer looks very good, but very different to the actual gameplay. After about an hour I got bored. Some days later I returned back to the game and played it just to see where the story goes. It was quite a shocking ending. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see how a game like this, I don't even really need to read any more negative reviews. A game like this just does not stand up to the quality of other JRPGs. Why not, instead of playing this game, save your time and play Dragon Quest? It would make a lot more sense to play Dragon Quest for 100 hours and that game being very popular and very relevant be the experience I put on my YouTube channel, instead of playing something that very few people have played. It does have some relevancy. It's above the arbitrary 20 reviews, but it's episodic on a JRPG, which is just crazy. And if we come over here and look at what else they have to sell, it seems like they have nothing, just DLC for the game. There's actually only 2 games listed here. Super Knight Raiders, which was also rated very positively, but it's a racing game, and it's kind of the same shtick that they're doing here. They have an anime looking thumbnail to sell a kind of generic motorcycle racing game. So I am the definition of unimpressed by this, so it should leave the follow list. And take note, there has been 0 games so far that have made it to the wish list. I am either getting more critical, or just along the way I've gotten luckier, and there just really haven't been that many games that deserve coverage. Next game we're looking at is called Light Away. This is January 25th, 2019, so it actually hasn't been given 6 months. We're supposed to be looking at games that start January 1st. Maybe I made some exception for some reason. It doesn't have 20 verified purchase reviews. It is 81% positive. So what is this game that would have caught my attention? And on first glance I can think of 1 or 2 things here. Either I recognized that this is actually just a low effort asset flip horror game, which I have seen quite a lot of, or I saw something in this game that really caught my attention and made me want to put it on the wish list early. I am not seeing anything here that would make me want to put this on the wish list early. This looks to me like a low effort asset flip horror game, although it does have more polish than most. Mostly I think the gameplay mechanic is kind of dumb. If we look back on this video, and I'm not going to just try and watch it twice, but you're picking up these balls of light and you're lighting your way. Quick Save is probably a very good name for a company, although maybe you'd have trouble copywriting the name of your company. So you have this light gun, you pick up balls of light that are shown on the edge of the gun, and then you shoot these balls of light, but you don't seem to need them most of the time, and it seems like this is a 100% just avoid being detected game. So I'm really not seeing anything here. This is English and Turkish, which is a odd combination, so I would assume this might be a Turkish developer. That being said, I would like to highlight Turkish games when they come out if they are really good, not just highlight them because they're Turkish games. So let's look at the negative reviews. No fun, not fun at all. An interesting bug that messed up my save file and prevents me from proceeding. You get a lot of these complaints. After getting to the room where the key C is, I got transported into the nightmare immediately without getting key C. Then after I escaped the nightmare, I pick up key C, and then I got transported to a nightmare again, stuck at the last level with no orange ammo, and impossible to turn back or move forward with barricades blocking my exits. So I got stuck in the nightmare forever. Negative review on a pretty specific issue. Clearly there are several keys, as this image is labeled key A. But yeah, this doesn't sound like anything specific or special as far as a game. So I will pre-evaluate this and leave it off the fall list. If I gave it another month, it's not going to get another 9 reviews that would change my opinion on it. Because most of my opinion on it is being formed by the screenshots in the presentation that is being shown to me. Next game we have to consider is the Lightfield Hyper Edition. It says it's a one-of-a-kind parkour precision racing game. That sounds like a lot of key phrases for search engine optimization. Explore beyond the boundaries of the traditional racing experience and sink into the striking visuals and hypnotic electro soundtrack. This has 24 verified purchase reviews. It's 83% positive. Came out July 31st, 2018. There are a lot of racing games that look like this on Steam, and it is probably the hardest category of games to determine whether they're good or not, and you really have to lean hard on reviews more than other games. A lot of games, just by the visuals, just by the screenshots, you can tell whether it's going to be a good game or not, or at least I can tell. This kind of looks like a Tron Like Cycles style game where you're in a 3D environment, because it looks like you're leaving a wall of lights that maybe people could crash into, although I'm not really seeing that. It would make sense though, considering the name is Lightfield. No, it seems like you can drive right through the light fields. So they get left behind, but they don't act as barriers, or if they do act as barriers, they're only slightly nudging you and hurting you, and instead of crashing you immediately, which is probably a better way to make a game like that, because the Light Cycles game really doesn't make a ton of sense. This might be a case of after the first lap you just stay in your own color light field and it speed boosts you. 3D controlling is always a little awkward, and I can see it feels like you're like rocket control, thrusting yourself left and right to adjust your directions. But this doesn't look terrible, certainly. It's not a VR game. It's $14.99. It does have single player. It has a third-party in-user license agreement, which none of these games ever need that. It's E from everyone. That doesn't really mean anything to me. Let's look at the negative reviews. There's 44 negative reviews and 6 positive reviews. So I am in a category where I could just ignore the negative reviews and believe the positive reviews. This posted January 24th. Game advertises control support, does not support controllers. Use an Xbox One controller, which every other Steam game is fine with, except this game. I am disappointed by false advertising. Update: after further diagnosis, I was able to resolve this by disabling controller support in the general settings and enabling general Steam controller support. This is awkward because I have to switch it back after finishing this game for other games to work properly. So that seems weird. This person got the game for free. And first thing he says, I'm happy I didn't buy the game. It looked like the game I'd really like and it seems nice, but the thing is there's not even settings in the game. It's probably a really nice game if you have a good PC, a nice gaming controller you can use on it. So it seems like this is lacking features. A good idea that just needs some polishing up is another negative review. This was May 31st that this negative review happened. So that's very close to when I'm recording. So it doesn't seem like the game has really improved. And frankly, it's been out for more than 6 months and they haven't improved. I don't see any updates or mentions of patches or anything like that that would alleviate fears. This whole system here also looks like a weird combo system of doing moves to get more score. Yeah, I didn't see that before. Like, there's a point where you just start getting things on the side of the screen. Where is it? Yeah. Seems like there's some kind of score elements there. I don't even understand. The parkour is also pretty deceptive. I don't see anything here that I'd really call parkour. I don't think you call a vehicle parkour anyways. So this is another game I think I can have leave the follow list. Like I said before, there's a lot of games that look like this on Steam, and most of them are not worth playing. I think there might be one worth playing, but this probably isn't it. Next we have a game that's a anime visual novel, tagged Indie Casual Simulation Anime Visual Novel. Not tagged nudity or sexual content, so I don't think we need a blur here. It's called Lightning Angel Tonia Liliche. That's a lot of L worlds. One day, a magic girl appears before him. She urges him to escape the city as soon as possible to save his life. And then we're getting a lot of an anime intro here. Thumbnail and animation style looks fine. Often you'll find these anime visual novels are done by either Western animators or like a Korean animator or a Chinese animator, and that changes the style and the quality quite a bit. So let's see. Now what has happened is I put a decent amount of visual novels on the follow list, and then eventually I determined that I really probably am only going to play the top 10 of them that have real relevancy. This came out December 5th, 2018. It is not really relevant. It has only 14 reviews. Sure, they're 92% positive, so people know what they're getting, but that doesn't mean anything. It seems like this magical girl transforms herself into a younger form, which is not unheard of as far as plots. I assume that's the case, and it isn't just two different characters. Let's see. It has about 10 hours of gameplay. That's good to know. Full Korean audio, so it's actually a Korean game. Koreans are generally the better animators compared to anybody else besides the Japanese. And they might very well tell a very different story because Korea and Japan very different countries, and so yeah, there's maybe something to that idea. But even though Steam is full of visual novels, and in case you're not aware, visual novels sell more on Steam than any other kind of game. 30% of sales of visual novels is a rough estimate. I can just throw out there. I don't think this game has relevancy. There's only one negative review. It's not in my language, so unless you can read Korean and read these 7 points, I assume, that's pretty useless information. We could look at Tableshop Co. Limited and see if they've done anything else, although the danger here is that the developer page might be a little not YouTube friendly. It seems like they do have some other styles in which they're drawing kind of young characters, which was one of the things that was getting censored for a brief time on on Steam, and it seems like Steam and Valve fell into their libertarian beliefs more than a censorship belief, and eventually gave it up. YouTube, on the other hand, though, would certainly maybe have a problem, particularly if there was a romance going on and you had a magical girl turning herself into an elementary school girl or a preschool size girl, and she's saying things like, "Master, what do you think about Lily?" So yeah, there might be some problems with that on YouTube side, but this really just falls down to relevancy. There are better visual novels out there, so this again should leave the fall list. And we've got a few of these. So next we have Lily Cycle Rainbow Sage, and this is from Manga Gamer. Manga Gamer is kind of known, I think, for... They've started putting a lot of their games directly on sale on their site and directly uncensored. So they're kind of in a position where they're advertising their games on Steam, but really trying to get people to buy them direct. And I would say Manga Gamer is not particularly the best visual novel developer ever. This seems to me to be maybe a girls love style game, girl on girl action, with slightly younger looking anime girls, although yeah, the age of any character will be said to be 18 and could be whatever you want it to be. Quite frankly, it's all fiction, so who cares. This is $24.99. It has full Japanese audio, which would be helpful in any visual novel, because then I could probably not have to read as much out loud. Let's see. And it has 20 reviews, and it's 90% positive, so I think people are happy with the product. There's only 2 negative reviews here. Let's see. It's not your typical visual novel. It comes with episodes. It is as if you're watching a show, but you have an impact on it. It is a great game if that's what you like. Voice acting is 11 out of 10. Visual novels 10 out of 10. Visuals 10 out of 10. Story is a solid 9 out of 10. However, the only reason I'm not recommending it is because it's not what I expected from a visual novel. It doesn't involve the player. It is a romance between the pairings and not the player and the characters. If you like the play style, it definitely is for you, but not for me. So it plays a little bit different than your standard visual novel game. It requires a third-party EULA. Again, I don't know why. Like, this is clearly not the kind of game that would need a third-party end-user license agreement. And so it seems like you're mostly just going to be watching a sequence with a few choices, and the name is not recognizable to me, so it's not like this is part of a big series or based off an anime or a manga or anything like that. So this is mediocre, I guess. Your average good visual novel, I will say good, but nothing special. If it comes down to the point where I cover some visual novels on my YouTube channel, which is a big if in itself, maybe I would come back and look for more of these games and play more of these games. But for now, I'm keeping the wish list just with the smallest amount of these types of games. And this may get me in trouble with YouTube, maybe not, depending on a lot of things. Depends on how YouTube is feeling if I was to cover a game like this. So, moving on. We had several visual novels in a row, which is not unheard of. Next we have a game called Liminal, Liminal. A mind-bending puzzle game where every door is a change in perspective and destination. Interesting idea. This came out July 23rd, 2018. It's 76% positive, and I just kind of want to watch this video. It's tagged puzzle, tagged early access, and adventure. It's still early access, so I think this game probably fails immediately just because it's been given 6 months to come out of early access and it hasn't done it. I suppose at some point it's possible that a game would come out of early access and then I would see it get reviewed by somebody else, and then maybe I'd put it back on the fall list or even put it on the wish list. But I don't feel a need to hold my breath or have a list of games that have a much higher chance of simply never being finished. This feels like an MC Escher concept done in 3D, where you're going through different doors and different stairways and it's changing your perspective, which is fine, but it doesn't particularly seem like there's much of a game otherwise here. I'm seeing little bug robots. I'm seeing maybe some things that are activating the doors, but this may be a very small environment in which you're doing puzzles, and after you've solved this one big puzzle, that might be the entire game. Like, these environments that are inside might very well just be rooms inside the outside section of the game. Early access, I think, kills this though. Like, it really does. Why haven't you finished your game before putting it out, or 6 months after putting it out? So let's look at the 6 negative reviews. The game shows promise, but wait for it to develop further as it isn't really playable yet. This came out August 12, 2018. It's unable to lower the resolution of the game, and it runs at a low frame rate, rendering it difficult to play. This would only launch as Steam VR, and I'm certain this is not a VR game. 30 frames per second locked. It seems like there's just generic optimization problems here. This is not tagged as a VR game at all. Yeah. This game just has to leave. It blew its potential by not having a finished product. And I think that's probably why it only has 25 verified purchase reviews, when really it should be closer to 50 or 100. If this was a finished product, people probably would have covered it and liked it. I like the concept. I think the graphics are fine, maybe a little bit asset flippy, but not terrible. But it's just not finished, and nobody wants to play an unfinished game. Me in particular, I find that incredibly annoying and unwelcome. Like, I don't want to eat half a sandwich. I want to eat a sandwich once it's completely made. I don't want to eat a half-baked cake. I want a full-baked cake. There's really nothing in my life that I have ever enjoyed being partially done, except for maybe a half-boiled egg. That might be an example. But moving on, we have a game called Listen, Lissn, which seems extreme in the spelling. A point-and-click adventure game for listeners in the style of adventure classic games such as Rim, with many puzzles and mysterious machines set to set in motion. This came out January 30th, 2018. It has 7 verified users. Now, I have no rhythm, frankly, and I had a lot of trouble doing the audio puzzle in Myst 1. An entire game built around audio puzzles like that would be annoying. If anything, my hearing is not getting better with age, which would be typical for anybody, so that too is a problem. The graphics here look terrible. I just can't imagine any reason why I'd want to play this. Now, I do love games that are inspired by Myst, and this seems like it's slightly inspired by games like Myst. Although they're referencing RIM, R-H-E-M, which is a game I don't really recognize. So there's no negative reviews here, but I'm still going to make a special exception here and just say no. I don't think this would be a good experience for me in person. Personally, R-H-E-M. Let's see. RIM. I remember this. Like, RIM 2 Special Edition is on Steam, and this was clearly a game inspired by Myst that came out in 2018. So why are you saying your game is inspired by another game that was inspired by Myst, instead of just mentioning Myst directly? I don't think RIM really does anything more. And this is from Nut Mueller and Runesoft GmbH. Let's look back and see who made this game. The publisher, the developer is Nut Mueller again, with Robert Wolf this time, and Runesoft GmbH. So he's saying this game that he made is inspired by a game he made before, which he's calling classic when it really isn't. This is English and German, and this is shenanigans in my book. So Listen is leaving the fall list, definitely. Now we have a different looking games, which I'm always looking for different looking games. Certainly, we've seen a lot that are just visual novels or kind of generic games. This is called Little Bug. It seems to be a platforming puzzler game of sorts. It seems like there's a ability to break platforms. It seems like you might be controlling both the flying bug and the child-like character. Maybe you're not controlling the child character at all. You coordinate two playable characters who share a physics-based swinging mechanic in real time, and then can walk and pick up items, while her spirit light can fly and explore dark areas. This is 100% positive of 28 verified reviews. Came out September 25th, 2018. It doesn't look terrible. It might be short. It might not have much to it. It really doesn't fall under the category of an asset foot game. It's too polished by far for that. It's $9.99. It's in a bundle. It's a Fig game, apparently. Fig being a Kickstarter website specifically for video games. December 30th, they added 2 new levels, and then that's the last update. Full audio in English. And we have like no pictures loading at all now. Yeah, and there's just no negative reviews, which is in itself suspicious. 3 hours of play time might be a consideration. That's probably the only negative thing I can find about it. I imagine if this is a Fig game, a lot of people got this game for as a Kickstarting supporter of it. So I imagine there's quite a few positive reviews that were activated by Key, or that they so that might be part of the concern too. This really might be a case of the only people who saw this game had invested in the game, and then they have a vested interest. Because Fig in particular, you get money back theoretically if the game sells well. If you're at least a big time investor. Maybe that's not true for the small time investors. They were called accredited investors. So what do I want to do with this? I think it goes to the wish list. I think my standards are high enough that if a sale came out and this was $9.99, I'd investigate it some more and probably determine it's not really worth $10 for 3 hours of gameplay. But if it came down to $3, yeah, maybe $5 even, I might be willing to cover this. And I'm starting to feel a little guilty for games starting with the letter L, because we have not had a single thing that's made it to the wish list so far. And that's not a good reason, certainly, to put this game on the wish list, but I think it is good enough to stand against the other games under consideration. Next we have Little Imps, a dungeon builder, and this looks like a Dungeon Keeper clone. It has 18 verified purchases and 38% of them are positive, so it's mostly negative. Usually games that are mostly negative don't make it to the fall list because it's pretty obvious. I have a soft spot in my heart for Dungeon Keeper. I'd love if there was a remaster or a continuation of Dungeon Keeper, but that's really never likely to happen. This came out January 24th, 2019, and it's still in early access. It hasn't been given a full 6 months, but I don't think in another month it's going to change everything around and make people happy. It's $11.99. It's single player and online co-op. We could jump down here quickly and see. It could have been fun, but no start menu, no option to reset. It just goes directly into the game. It's impossible to get anywhere. It still plays like a mobile game. Too much clicking. The timers kill the game. 5 minutes to remove a wall. Man, that sounds as bad as the Dungeon Keeper mobile game that was made. Let's see. Feels like one of those Facebook games without the microtransactions. There's a lot of waiting around, rooms, walls, and even floors to take so long to claim. So we're getting the general idea. This feels like a game that was supposed to have microtransactions in it, and they took out the microtransactions and just tried to sell it for $11.99. Really, there's nothing here that looks so terrible on the animation style if this was a free-to-play game, or if this was just a $4 game and it actually played well. But yeah, seeing what I'm seeing, this easily leaves the fall list. Next we have a game called Little Mouse's Encyclopedia, which looks like a very kid-friendly game. It says it's an interactive encyclopedia for kids and their parents. I guess you'd kind of call it a point-and-click adventure, for lack of a better term. It looks well animated, and most kids' games, particularly with this art style, don't look very well animated at all. I'm not sure how much of a game really is here, so I might want to look at the playtime. There sadly just aren't a lot of good young kid games on PC, and you'd pretty much just want to say don't have kids play on Steam and instead just play on Nintendo consoles, or even an old Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 would do you probably better. My question after looking at that video, is there a game I can kind of run through in about an hour where I'm making elements that can be clicked on appear, and then I can just kind of ignore or very quickly click on the magnifying glass to show this and not have to read all of that content? I think for a little kid too, that would very much be the case, is that they wouldn't be too interested at reading all of these for everything you could click on. And then there is a question about replayability. This is a $4.99 game. It's bundled with another game called Under Leaves, which unfortunately nothing is loading. Let's see, there's no negative reviews. 2.9 hours sounds good. 0.5 hours seems fine. Let's It's 9 out of 10. Hopefully the developers will add more content. Let's see. Let's see. 1.2 hours. Sorry, I went quiet there. 2.86 hours, 0.5 hours. Seems like you can spend between 30 minutes and 3 hours on the game. And there's several languages being supported here, so perhaps you could play the game in a different language and learn a few things as a supplemental second language education. I don't see anything wrong with this, other than maybe it's a little too expensive. So I'm gonna put this on the follow list. No, the wish list. I get the lists all confused. So I'm gonna have to train myself to say I'm gonna put this on the wish list, and then I'm gonna have to train myself to say I'm gonna give this game a follow, so that they sound very different. Next game we have is called Locomotion. This came out May 10th, 2019, and it's 100% positive with 13 reviews. This game is not ready to be put on the wish list, but almost certainly it will make it to the wish list. I was just probably being a little too ambitious here, because there could be a turn here. Like, this game only came out earlier, about a month ago, less than a month ago, as of this recording. So people could lose interest in this game, and it only has 13 reviews 6 months from now or a year from now, and then the game still wouldn't be relevant, even if it is something that actually attracts my attention. And that is really the reason why this is even open, is because it attracted my attention. But I think I might get suckered if I don't wait. So as much as I would want to give this one a special exemption, it doesn't really need it or deserve it. 6 months from now, maybe there will be more gameplay in it. It's just kind of a simplistic puzzle game where you're adjusting the tracks in a 3D environment to get a train from one point to the other. But yeah, this needs more time. But this is also, I guess, a good example of the kind of games that usually don't even make it to the follow list, because in previous times I would have just put it directly in the wish list, and now I'm being a little bit more careful. And carefulness is good, because I want to keep my wish list as curated as possible, because I ask people to gift games to me off my wish list as a way of supporting my channel. And I don't want to get into a scenario where somebody gifts me something that is absolutely awful, because nobody wants to hear that the game they gave to a YouTuber actually is bad. And as a video game critic, I'm going to be critical of any game, so I'm already at a level of sounding mostly negative. Next game we have here is called Lo-Fi Ping Pong, which is a rhythm game, allegedly, where you play ping pong to your own music. Now, inherently, this probably would not be something I could play on YouTube, because it would get content ID'd and copyright claimed like crazy. Even if I tried to find public domain music, it'd still get claimed, because their system is just so crazy and unfair. Also, I have no rhythm, so I'm not sure that would be a very good experience either. So this is almost a game that I want just because I want to support it as a concept. That being said, this might also be a bit of a asset flip weirdo game. I don't know if you really call this an asset flip. Like these low pixel drawings could be unique. Like, this could be 100% custom art, but not sure. So I'm not 100% sure on this game. It's just so weird it even throws me through a loop. It's $4.99. It's still being patched as of April 3rd, so Apparently they're working through it. You can change the speed of songs now from 100% to 150%, which probably would speed up the experience quite a bit for a lot of songs. Most songs are longer than you would think. There's a short story mode, 5 different modes that you can play with. Split screen so you can play with your friends. There's no online gameplay, of course. There's a no fail mode so you can level up your skill. So I could play it even as somebody with no rhythm. Let's see. If we look at the negative reviews, what do we have? Is it just me, or is this game difficult? Any ways to make it easier? Mods? I just want to chill to the music. This came out March 16th. The campaign is enjoyable, but it completely fails flat when it comes to custom music. The files have to be OGG. Setting up the BPM is more complicated than it needs to be, and half the songs I used were off by half a beat. There might be a bug in there which would make it off by half a beat, or just some latency in it in general. Converting a file to OGG is pretty easy. You can get freeware software that would do that in bulk very easily, or you can use what is it called? Audacity is the open source sound file software, which would be way too powerful to use for something like this, but you could easily just install Audacity, go file, open, and open a music file, or file import and import a music file. You probably have to import a music file, and then file save as and choose OGG, or file export OGG. It's not super hard. So several people saying it's really difficult. Here's the developer's response. Let's see. Seems like a real response from a developer. Hey, thanks for playing. Yeah, these are big issues, but it's the engine restrictions that I've stumbled upon. The game is made in GameMaker. GameMaker eats only OGG files, and he doesn't have advanced audio functions to detect beats per minute by itself, so making the BPM tapper, it was the best way I could imagine. About songs falling off beat, tweak BPM a little bit, or the beginning of the song, there's a plus 0.05 seconds button under the left yellow border. On the next patch, I'll make this button to use 0.05 or 0.01 sec, so it will be more precise. So an actual response. A GameMaker game is going to be a limitation, certainly. And I guess I have all the images loaded now. But this just seems like such a unique idea. It deserves a shout out. That being said, making a game like this in GameMaker, I kind of want to see this developer succeed so he can just make a new game with the exact same concept in Unity, which would definitely be easier to program in and more versatile. And if you made it in Unity, then you could probably put it on cell phones, where a game like this would make a lot of sense, particularly if you're just tapping the screen at a specific beat. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a game that basically is doing the same thing with maybe a little bit more complexity, and that game managed to be super popular and successful, and is now getting a Nintendo's Zelda spin-off called Cadence of Hyrule. So Lo-Fi Ping Pong, I think it deserves to be on the wish list. Next game we have is Lorelei. This is the third game in the Cat Lady series, or perhaps the Downwell series, because the first game in this series was Downwell, then the Cat Lady came out, then they made a remaster of Downwell, and I think the creator specifically says you're supposed to play the remaster after you play the Cat Lady, so it makes more sense. I didn't really like Downwell, but I would want to definitely finish this series. The series is very horrific, very graphic. Really good soundtrack in the Cat Lady too. Um, so there's really no way this game wasn't going to my wish list. The only thing I really wanted to do is wait for it to come out, and it wasn't out when it first happened to be out, and maybe just check to make sure it's not horribly received. It's 85% of 275, and I don't want to really spoil any of the story for myself, let alone other people. Unless you are underage or have a weak constitution, I would recommend playing the Cat Lady series if you can handle horror. I guess there's also that, and try to handle horror. There's a lot of people that just won't even watch joke movies like the Friday the 13th series that came out in the 80s, or Scream, and it's like those were as much comedies as they were horror movies. They shouldn't be bothering you. These games, or at least the two games before, are not even point and click adventures. They're actually keyboard only adventures. But so you're not really doing a lot of gameplay. It very much is a story experience. They do have slightly different endings, although I would argue perhaps you wouldn't want to play the game multiple times, but maybe after you play the entire series you'd play it multiple times. And yeah, there's just grotesque and horrific imagery. Seems like there's actually items you're picking up and using, which you really don't do a lot of that in the Cat Lady. So there's some weird things here. The developer Heartster Games has had some major success, but they also haven't really done anything to improve their ability to make games, and so I kind of expect that their next game, now that this trilogy is out, should be something that's a lot more ambitious and a lot better made, instead of using old engines, which is what Downwell was, and making very simplistic games. I'm not sure if that's really going to happen though. Let's see if we reload this page, and let's just go. You could buy the entire Screen 7 collection for $50, which is 12 games, or you could just buy the Cat Lady and Downfall. Was I calling it Downwell? I get those two games confused. And Lorelei. And you can get the original soundtrack for the games. Apparently, you don't get... There is no soundtrack available for Lorelei, which maybe you just get that by default. Is there really anything else to say? The Cat Lady, probably the most psychologically horrific game on Steam, and that is kind of unique. I in no way would listen to any negative reviews, so yeah, this one's getting special consideration. Certainly Lorelei is going to the wish list. In fact, I already put it on the list to put on the wish list. Next we have Lost Lands Ice Spell, which is a hidden object game, and I don't know why I have any hidden object games still on the follow list, but I am clearly working towards remedying that mistake. I've played more than enough hidden object games, and in all fairness, I can see that some of these screenshots are showing a lot of mini games that aren't hidden object games. That being said, if anything is tagged hidden object games, then it probably has a lot more hidden object scenes than the screenshots are going to indicate. Even if there is a hidden object looking game that actually doesn't even have any hidden object gameplay, that's not a big selling point, because a simplistic adventure game designed to be sold at a high price and not tell a very good story or be a very good game is still not interesting. Hidden object games are kind of the Western equivalent of low effort games before low effort games just became asset flips from the Unity store. This is $6.99, and I see no reason why I'd want this on the follow list or the wish list, either one. Next we have Lost Lands Mistakes of the Past. So I guess what I was thinking was that I'd play a series of them. Don't get tricked by these animation cutscenes. They show at the beginning of the game, and then that is that, and you see the rest of the game is maybe you'll see a stationary 2D character with some lips moving when they talk, and that's kind of it. So I was probably suckered in by a trilogy, but that is what hidden object games do quite well, is that they release many games that seem like they're connected, but they're not much of a story and not much of a game anyway, so you're really not going to get a good experience. It's almost like episodic releases without just the episode numbers. I will admit 5bin Games, as a developer and publisher, is asking considerably less than Big Fish Games asks for their collector's editions, quote unquote, of hidden object games. That being said, the Lost Lands collection itself is 6 different games for $30.46, and I imagine you would find that the Lost Lands series is actually pretty short per game. But in the end, I guess it doesn't matter. I don't want to play a hidden object game of any kind. Next we have a game called Lost Letters. I wonder how many games start with the word lost. The Lost Letters of Seraphina. This looks like a 3D game. A scavenger of electronics through a post-internet world, taking place in the township of Seraphina. As she explores each environment, she uncovers the history. So it looks like it's a walking simulator with, for the most part, where you're finding things. Something kind of like Gone Home, and I would be fine with a Gone Home style clone if any of them were well written or good experiences. Looking at the fact that this came out November 1st, 2018, and there's only 3 verified purchase reviewers, I don't know if this game was given a chance. It's $3.99 too, so it's pretty cheap. Let's see. This interactive experience was created in 2016 through 2018 alongside an independent indie pop album written and produced by Luxy. So you play this game and you go through 7 levels and you hear 7 songs. Okay, the approximate length of the game is 24 minutes. So this is one of those cross-media advertisements more than anything, which people tried and failed at. Let's see. I feel rushed to find the letters to the point I can't even read them. I feel timed by the song because I found out by the first level that if you don't find the letters by the end of the song, you don't find them all. Then I found myself searching the level for all the things I could click instead of enjoying the letters and the music. This is what the negative review here is, and that's 1 negative review to 2 positive reviews, which I think I would agree with the negative review. Cross-media experiences to promote your band. Not a smart move. Not something that needs to happen on Steam. If you want to sell your music, license your music to somebody who actually has made games before. Or somebody who's made a game that would be good and wouldn't just be a rushed walking simulator, for lack of a better description. Yeah, and there really is no excuse for the song to not just fade out, wait a couple of minutes, then fade back in if the player's taking their time. When you take away control from the player, you're taking away what they call agency from the player, and they definitely hate when that happens. Next game we have to consider is called Love Bites. Play as a male or female in a horror dating simulator. A curse is cast upon you. Can love be a cure for what ails you? So, interesting idea. It's tagged as a visual novel, but clearly this would be a Western style of animation. So, are you a vampire or a werewolf here? Or do you get to choose? That's a pretty large amount of people being animated. And interesting. Seems like you have a selection here. Or you can just pick any guy or girl that you're interested in. Maybe some people that don't identify as either. This video is intriguing. I don't see anything here about nudity or sexual content though, so you probably are just going through the romance bits. It does put an interesting spin on a romance visual novel. Let's see. So it looks like a standard schedule visual novel game where you have money, energy, and stress. You schedule who you're going to talk to and interact with. Seems pretty much standard for that kind of stuff. I'm not really seeing anything terrible about this. Although this might be a pretty short experience. What can we take from this? It doesn't have English full audio, so we'd have to be reading out everything. It says a new character was added, but I don't know when that was added because there's no update, so interesting. You can play as Brandon, male, or Caitlin, female. There are 4 romances for both protagonists: Victor, Sabrina, Diana, and Tyrone. So, whether you pick male or female, if you are then preferencing by gender, if you're a male that wants to date a female, you only have 2 choices with Sabrina and Diana. If you're a female that only wants to date females, you only have Diana and Sabrina. If you're a female that wants to only date males, you only have Victor and Tyrone. If you're a male that wants to date males, you only have Victor and Tyrone. Feels like it would be a little bit easier and not a ton more work to have just different character designs for the same characters. Turn Victor into Vanessa, turn Tyrone into Tanisha, turn Sabrina into Sam, and Diana into Daniel, I suppose. That would be the easiest way to always have 4 options, because what you would want to do at the beginning of the game is say, I want to play as a certain gender, and I want all my romance characters to be a certain gender. The new Ashley character is a romance for both of them, so they threw in a 3rd girl, but that doesn't change much. 2 variant endings for each love interest based on your choices. So if you want to see all the endings, you're going to have to go through every single ending. Maybe you don't have to play it 8 times, but you would have to play it at least 4 times, which might be a problem, frankly. Let's see. This is a long review. Let's see. The game is structured so that as you go along, you get scenes with every single possible love interest. You don't stop dropping any of these routes until well into the game. So for your first playthrough, you're bored because you spend a lot of time on at least a couple of routes that you don't have any interest in. But that would be acceptable. The problem is that this absolutely kills the replay value. You can try and pursue other routes in the new game, but now you've already read almost all of the scenes in the first and subsequent playthroughs. The scenes don't change until you're nearing the end of the game. The dream scenes, while providing a bit of atmosphere, only add even more to this issue. The only variety comes with a few inconsequential choices, which change 2 to 4 lines before the scene goes right back on track to what you've already read before. If you use the skip read option, you'll soon find there isn't much content for the new route you're trying at all, perhaps 3 scenes before it goes to the end card. So yeah, and inherently this is the problem. Without reading any other negative reviews, I think I've targeted in on the problem, and this is the problem with any visual novel, is that when you commit to making a visual novel, you are probably doing a ton of writing and a ton of animation to make it good. And if you don't do that, then there will be way too much repetition, and even in a good visual novel, for many players, there will be too much repetition. So what I suggest to Love Bites, because I think you could probably fix this game, is take the visual novel element out completely, write the story that you think is the best path, and then just put some simplistic gameplay around it, or don't make it a video game at all. Turn it into a web comic or a comic book or an animated show or something like that. I think the art style is good. I think the concept is slightly good. There's something that could be done here, and most Western animators are not good animators. This is a rare exception to that. But the gameplay and the general concept of the game is kind of low effort and not done well. So Love Bites, unfortunately, is getting removed from the follow list, which is fine. Again, way too many visual novels on the follow list, and we're doing the cleanup work now to finally get rid of most of them. Next game we have is Love is Dead, which unfortunately does not seem to be a visual novel around dating a zombie. Instead, it's a puzzle game with zombies in it. But I don't really see anything here that looks like a zombie at all. This is rated positive. 100% of 13 reviews. Came out May 31st, 2018. I remember when this came out and I was pretty iffy on it, and even now looking at it, I'm still pretty iffy on it. I'm not exactly sure what this is. It seems like it's a just kind of Unity puzzle game, for lack of a better term. I'm not sure what the gameplay mechanic is. I don't really understand it. It's $11.99. Since it's 100% positive, let's look at some of the positive reviews and see. It's a love combination of spoopy and cutes. I have no idea what that is supposed to tell me in that sentence. A simple yet stunning game that sets a challenging scenery for the whole story ever told. Can you please not write your positive reviews like it's the beginning of your novel? The game is absolutely fantastic and positive in general. Good game. Is great for restoring faith in humanity. Okay, that was a paid review. This is why I don't look at positive reviews. Indie dev puzzle adventure. Play co-op or single player. Game is addicting and gets harder the further you progress. Game was received for free. Let's see. Like, I'm really trying to look over these positive reviews and see if anything will describe how you play the game. just top-down action puzzle blend like Chip's Challenge. Okay, I know what Chip's Challenge is. It's pushing around keys and elements to solve puzzles, but with less cheap shots. The game markets itself as a local co-op, but it's easily playable alone, although things are a bit slow if you can't control both players at once. Plot is sort of cheesy and literal, but it applies to the other I Saw Her games as well. It's a charm of its own anyways. Overall, a good game. Has plenty of content. Yeah, I had to go through the very bottom of all the reviews. Yeah, I don't see anything that interests me. It seems like it is mostly a co-op game that you can play single player to control both characters to get from point A to point B. She's standing on a platform that's allowing you to activate other things. Yeah, I see nothing here. This is leaving the fall list. Alright, next we have a game that's tagged sexual content, so let me go into blurry just for a moment here and see if any of these screenshots are too YouTube unfriendly, family unfriendly. Not the ones that are loading, at least. So we have a game here called Love Language Japanese. It's rated very positively, negative 90% of 54 reviews. Came out January 11, 2019. It's from papurika.moe and Initiative Media, neither of which I've heard of. $19.99. This doesn't, I think, fully fall under the category of just a visual novel. I think it is also somewhat of a language learning software. It's $19.99, although I don't think you probably should try to learn Japanese as a second language, and if you are going to try and learn Japanese as a secondary language, you definitely need to have someone who's a native speaker teaching you how to hear the words and speak the words, way more than you need a game that tells you how to read the words in katakana or kanji. That's not going to be super helpful, even if you were to move to Japan. This game is English only, which is slightly suspicious. It says it's full English audio, so that's weird. It says all characters are 18 years old or older, which is your standard disclaimer. It's the very first visual novel dating someone, offering a learning experience as you start the journey of the Japanese language. I've seen several of these games that claim to teach you Japanese on Steam and not really believed any of them. 40 achievements. It's not really a red flag there. Let's look at the 5 negative reviews, but I'm fairly certain this is not a game that needs to be on the wish list. And even if I were to purchase it, it's not a game I think I could cover, depending on how much censorship it is. First review: while the language learning via dating sim concept is clever and the story dialogue fun and amusing, after a few hours of play I can't recommend the game. First, there are a number of careless mistakes which impede your ability to master lessons, most commonly quizzes on your vocabulary words not yet introduced. Second, and more seriously, well, just Google the game title together with Anata no Koto o Suki to Iwate with safe search enabled if you're at work, and enough said. I have no idea what the Google result would be there, but I assume that what this is either this is the English release of that game, or this game is a complete rip-off of that game. He should have just explained himself. Let's see. Yeah, I can't really translate this to. Anata would probably be a name. No means the. Koto is some kind of title, but I don't know what. And O probably is of. And I have no idea what two means, but it probably does not mean two. And Watse probably is another name of something. Let's see. Next review says, I thought this game was supposed to be fun. There are no pictures, so it's basically the same as reading a textbook, just with the added benefit of buttons that read the syllables aloud and an attractive lady standing on the side. Oh, really? Is that all the game is? The game is full of typos. The quiz system was horrible. So there's just like tons of this. Apparently is all the game really is. So yeah, not much of a game, just trying to sell itself on sex. And education and selling itself on sex, not really a good combination, I would imagine. It's very hard, at least speaking from the male perspective, to learn or retain any knowledge when distracted by lewd images. So yeah, not helpful. Not a game that should be on the wish list, even though it is rated very positively. I think the reason why it's probably rated very positively is because most people know that this is just around selling the sexual content and the nudity, and most people were happy buying the game just for that. But yeah, this is definitely not the game I would recommend if you want to actually learn, or a game that I could cover on my YouTube channel. Next, we have a game called Love Letter, which is based off the board game Love Letter, which most card game and board games are not well ported to PC. This one is 92% positive of 28 user reviews. Came out October 24th, 2018. Now, I've never actually played Love Letter, so there's a little bit of weirdness in that, but I am a sucker for card games. And I think there's something here to be said that I'd like to give it a try. $5.99. Particularly, it would be easier for me to play Love Letter digitally as a single player game than it would be to try and find 3 or 4 people to play it in the real world with me. This has single player, multiplayer, and online multiplayer, and lots of language supports. 1 to 4 players. It seems like it's a pretty simplistic thing. And usually when I'm talking about a card game, I'd say Tabletop Simulator might be a better option. I'm not sure that's really the case in Love Letter's instance. Let's see what the -5 reviews are, although I'm leaning towards ignoring them. This one's from April 28th or 26th. It is a very good implementation of the card game, great graphics, smooth animation, and easily understood UI. However, there are 2 factors that keep me from recommending it. Firefly, the single player mode, is only a 2-player game. You go against 1 AI opponent. Love Letter is mediocre with only 2 players. They really should have spent time and money to implement a 4-player version. You versus 3 AI opponents. Sadly, cannot select how many players you want. In multiplayer mode, as soon as 1 opponent joins your game, it starts a 30-second countdown to start the game. As I said, Love Letter is mediocre with only 2 players, so this isn't ideal. You should also be able to specify a 4-player game, and the game should not start until you have 4 players. And see, now that brings out an interesting concern too, because I bet the player base for this is not huge. Seems like every time I try to play a board game digitally, there's some kind of problem with the offerings. The game looks and plays great, but it does not have local multiplayer option. You can play multiplayer online with other Steam accounts. The game describes it as both multiplayer and online multiplayer, which is deceiving as the only multiplayer that's not online is local, and the game doesn't have that. I got it in a recent Humble Bundle. I didn't find it very fun. Can't recommend it just because of that. And this was activated with a key, of course, because they got it from the Humble Bundle store. I like the Humble Bundle store when you can control it and donate all of the proceeds to charity. But that's about the only time I would highlight any store above just buying it on Steam directly. Let's see. There's no option on how many players. It's the same complaint again on this. So my experience playing this game would be very different than other people's experience playing this in the board game version, because even if I tried to play online multiplayer, I imagine I would only get connected to one other person, if even that. And so you're in this quandary. It's not well thought out and well designed, and it's from Asmodee Digital as the publisher, and this is what Asmodee Digital is kind of known from, is that they get the licenses to new and popular board games, and then they make subpar versions here. And they got the graphics done fine, they just didn't program the AI. So unfortunately, Love Letter doesn't make it to the wish list, which is fine too. I can easily go through the rest of my life and never play Love Letter either in the real world or digitally, and just forget it exists. There's plenty of games like that. Next we have a game on Steam from Sega, which is 59 years old, so next year will be their 60th anniversary, if that means anything. It's actually, as of like yesterday when I was recording, as of yesterday to me was their anniversary. This game is Love Thyself, a Horatio story. This is rated very positively as a visual novel dating sim, although I gotta say, having a visual novel dating sim where you're an alien looking character that is not very visually attractive, and that's going to be a hard thing to do. In a society where everyone is a clone of the Emperor, can you survive long enough to find out who you truly are? Try out this brand new visual novel set in an endless universe. I want to see what Amplitude Studio also has made besides this. So this kind of falls under the category, in my opinion, of a joke game. It's free though, so I guess maybe that's fine. And free games that are kind of worth trying should just go to the wish list. I've been keeping them on the follow list, but if I'm really going to play them, I should just put them. The only negative review we have in English is, let's see, it says yawn. I've read the encyclopedia entries list right, and the stories are supposed to be good, right? Free is nice, good is better. I think we could probably ignore that one negative review considering how so many others are positive for the prize. The question, I guess, is why would Amplitude Studio put out this game? It came out April 1st, 2019, so it was an April Fool's Day joke. Otherwise, they have Endless Space and Dungeon of the Endless and Endless Legend. They've been making, every game they have in their name is Endless, and this has Endless in the name. So this is a joke game tied into either Endless Space or Endless Legend or Dungeon of the Endless or Endless Space 2. Probably Endless Space if I was to guess. Well, it's weird, certainly, but I'll put it on the wish list. I probably would never play it unless I played Endless Space, and even when I did play Endless Space, I probably would not remember to play it, so it'll be one of a small handful of games that are free on the wish list with that I'll have no intention of probably actually playing. But it's an easy decision also. You just say, yeah, put it on the wish list. If you want to play it, install it. Who cares? Move on. Next we have a game on Steam called, I guess I don't need to say on Steam, all of these games are on Steam. Steam is the only place I want to buy games, because my collection of games is far too large to try to keep 2 or 3 storefronts curated. We have Lovecraft Untold Stories, which it says it's a action adventure RPG with Lovecraftian as a tag, which frankly I'm not sure that there should be a tag for Lovecraftian style of art, storytelling, and far too many people are obsessed with Lovecraft style of art and storytelling, when I'd like to see a lot more variety and new ideas and original ideas be created. Same is true for Twin Peaks. Like, far too many game developers are influenced heavily by Twin Peaks, or influenced heavily by some other style of game, when you could do your own thing and have your own ideas. If you do have your own ideas, unfortunately I don't think too many people do have unique ideas, but sometimes it feels like they can't even derivate from a common idea enough to change things. So looks like it's a top-down twin-stick hack-and-slash game. Doesn't look terrible. This came out January 31st, 2019. I frankly might never actually be in the mood to play this kind of game, but I think I'll put it on the wish list anyways. There's nothing terribly wrong with this. It would probably be very unfair, since it's 90% positive of the 177 verified purchase reviews. It'd be very unfair for me to 79 on Metacritic also. Sorry. It'd be very unfair for me to look at these 21 negative reviews and then believe them when there's 5 times as many positive reviews. Let's see. These seem like legitimate negative reviews. It's just kind of mob rule at this point. And mostly I have been leaning towards believing negative reviews a lot more. But yeah, this one, the numbers don't really lie. That being said, top-down twin-stick shooter games aren't really my cup of tea. I see so many people make games like that and on Steam, and they seem very repetitive and very boring. Anyways, moving forward, I'm going to wrap this up. We've been going a little bit longer than average. So games starting with L. I'm starting to run out of steam too. Let's see. Next we have a game called Luna and the Moonling, which Luna is means the moon. Let's see. A unique spin on classic adventure gameplay. Luna and the Moonling stars 2 unlikely friends, and they must work together to solve a mystery and save their kingdom. Inspired by some of the greatest adventure puzzle classics, Luna and the Moonling will challenge you for hours. This came out September 21st, 2018. This doesn't look terrible. It kind of looks just like a Unity block pushing puzzle game. Not really seeing anything terrible here. Maybe in the gameplay you have a timer going or a currency going. There's clearly some collectibles going on. This is $14, and $0.99, and the last update they had in February 1st, where they announced the Discord. $14.99 is asking a lot, particularly considering they're saying many hours of challenge, but not any estimate. Let's see. It says it's a relative new studio that was founded in 2016. What do we have as far as negative reviews? We have one negative review, not in my language. And then positive reviews. Navigating puzzles each level while you try to beat the time and move limits to earn the best score. So yeah, time limit, movement limit, things, puzzles. I kind of think this game is probably too expensive, that it's just priced itself out of the region of reasonableness in this case. $15 is just so much for what a game like this should be. This should be a $7.99 game to start with, discounted down to 3 or 4 levels. And while it looks like it's a decent design of a game, that does not look like a $15 game. As for this developer, they have nothing else. They did at some point log in and make a new developer page, but that's kind of it. Yeah, Luna and the Moonling just priced itself out of a sale, quite frankly, and it seems pretty obvious they priced themselves out of a lot of sales, because if this game was $7.99 and went on sale to be less than $5 or even at $5, more than 9 people would have purchased it and reviewed it, and it would have then been highlighted and recommended. Is there any games here in comparison that would be better? Like, no, not really. It's not even in good company with the other recommended games. So, yeah. Unfortunately, this one's leaving the fall list. And that is the last game we have, starting with the letter L. I suspect heavily that the next recording will go even longer. This was 2 hours and 22 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if M, games that start with M, goes 3 hours. N, same thing, might go 3 hours. And then O and P might be a little bit less. And then Q and R. Q will probably be pretty small. R will probably be pretty big. S will be pretty big. And then T will be very, very big. But we're making progress. We're getting through the language. Getting through ABCs. We ended up, probably by being a little generous, with 6 games that are actually making it to the wish list, and all the others that we looked at are getting removed from the follow list. So we're doing a very good job of cleanup, and with this rate of games being removed, 6 months from now when I have to do another follow list cleanup, or a year from now when I have to do another follow list cleanup, because more games are being added, I think my standards are going to be higher, and there will be a lot less to look at. And instead of spending 2 hours and a half doing just one letter, we may very well only spend 30 minutes doing a letter, which would be much more realistic and save me certainly a lot of talking and a lot of time. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, click the notification bell so you actually have a chance of getting notifications. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link down to Patreon. Or You can friend me on Steam, gift me a game off my wishlist. That's why I'm curating the wishlist. That's why I use the follow list as a system of seeing if a game has enough reviews to deserve to be covered. If you don't want to make a choice, you can also gift gift cards, or if you don't care to look through the wishlist and have a game directly in mind you'd like to see me cover, you can just gift that too. That would be all very helpful. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.